The last of the rain will clear for a dry night with some mist possible. Chilly for the moment, with temperatures dropping to about 10 degrees tonight. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The News Round on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
This is News Talk.
The first golfing major of the year is upon us. Harding Park, San Francisco. Who better than a former USPGA champion to preview it? Padraig Harrington is coming your way this evening. Wednesday night rugby as well. We have Leo Cullen, Leinster coach, taking a call. Not just any old call, a Zoom call, trust me. They're going to be big. The Irish cricketers, meanwhile, feeling very good about life. Andrew Balbirnie, the captain, will join us around 8:40 or so. And then busy football show. Pat Nevin will join us. Plus, Gary Owens and Niall Quinn held a press conference this afternoon. Stephen Doyle will bring us through it around 9:30 or so. We'll play a few clips. 53106, the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormick, along with us for the news round as ever. Good evening.
Joe, I'm liking the Gaelic flair you added to Andy Balbirnie's name there. Balbirnie is rather sumptuous.
I said Balbirnie.
Balbirnie, yeah.
I thought I said Balbirnie.
The notions coming off you right now is just unbelievable.
It's cricket, Richie, you know.
Gentleman's game.
Indeed. Ronan Mullen, good evening.
Hi, Joe.
So we have the first golfing major on the way tomorrow. Padraig Harrington is going to join us in about 15-18 minutes time or so. 4:11 p.m. tomorrow, we have Brooks Koepka, Shane Lowry and Gary Woodland teeing off. And then 22 minutes later at 4:33 tomorrow, Tiger, Rory and Justin Thomas. So that's on the way tomorrow. Padraig Harrington will give us the lowdown. We should kick off the news round. It is, as ever, with thanks to Gillette. We don't just play the game, we challenge it. Gillette, made of what matters. And Richie, I mentioned Stephen Doyle will be along later on to run us through some of the Gary Owens, Niall Quinn press conference. What was the gist?
Pretty much the FAI's interim CEO, Gary Owens, saying the alternatives are not pretty if reforms aren't passed at their upcoming EGM. An €18 million government bailout is dependent on changes being made at the cash-strapped association. Among those are 6 independent directors coming onto the FAI's board, which is facing some opposition from those within the game. But Owens said today that claims the future is bleak if they can't secure state funding.
There's a hell of a lot at stake, yeah. I mean, this is a really important time for the association because, I mean, to be fair, we borrowed 52.5 million. We needed the money. We were bust really, and we need that money to be able to go forward. We need the confidence of the key stakeholders. We need to build trust. We need to build back our reputation. It was seriously damaged, you know. Both publicly, it's been seriously damaged, and with our key stakeholders.
The EGM's on Friday, Rich.
The FAI Council meeting is coming up on Friday, to which they're going to put these reform changes to them. There is some reluctance to go with the 6 independent directors situation that they have currently on the table. But the warning that came from Roy Barrett last night, he basically has penned a letter saying that UEFA and FIFA both support the changes in the FAI. It wasn't so much that, they both just said that these are the conditions that needs to happen if an association, a functioning association, is to continue on. Whereas Barrett, his warnings were a little bit more stark. He said that if these changes aren't adapted, then the state funding won't be reinstated, and if state funding isn't reinstated, essentially what we're looking at is the FAI collapsing. And if that happens, they will have to withdraw from both UEFA and FIFA. Their shares in the Aviva Stadium will be seized, and essentially the FAI, as we know it at least, will cease to be. So they are staring into the blackness with this, but there is a sense that it should get over the line because common sense needs to prevail here, and they need to get these changes essentially signed off, because if they don't, there's nothing beyond that.
Okay, we'll talk to Stephen Doyle later on in the football show. Meanwhile, the situation in Waterford.
Yeah, Waterford today confirming that the first of their players tested for COVID-19 has returned a negative result. All activity at the League of Ireland club has been halted while a second player awaits news from their test. Waterford's match with Sligo was postponed last night, and their club doctor also resigned from her position. John Sheridan's side are due to play Cork City this coming Saturday, but there's no word just yet on whether or not that fixture is going to get the go-ahead.
Okay, football this evening?
Yeah, and plenty of it in the Europa League. Manchester United should secure their place in the Europa League quarter-finals this evening, barring the miracle of all miracles. They lead the Austrians of LASK 5-0 going into their last 16 second leg at Old Trafford. Also kicking off at 8 is Inter's one-legged affair with Getafe. That's being played in Gelsenkirchen. 2 games kicked off at 5:55. It's currently Copenhagen 2, Istanbul Başakşehir 0. Copenhagen now leading by 2-0 on aggregate as well, while Shakhtar Donetsk and Wolfsburg remain scoreless in Kiev. If it stays as is, then Shakhtar will be going through 2-1 on aggregate.
Okay. And it is LASK, is it?
It's LASK or LASK. Basically, it is an acronym because they're based out of Linz in Austria. And that's obviously where the L comes from. The remainder of it is like probably sport club, yada, yada, yada. But I go LASK. You can go at LASK if you want. I don't think we should fall out over it.
No, let's not. I mean, it's maybe the most boring conversation we've ever had, which is saying something.
I don't know, Joe. You've had several golf conversations on here that have been a little bit tedious.
No, well, you can say that to Padraig Harrington in a few moments' time. Ronan, Europa League, Manchester United going for the title again. What, 3 years on from winning it under Jose Mourinho? They are the firm favourites. That would cap off a very nice season finale for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Oh, absolutely. And just on the last thing, this notional stuff that's crept in the last 10 years or so, where people start pronouncing CSKA Moscow as CSKA Moscow, which I presume is probably right, but I don't know why this became a thing in the last few years. But on the Man United thing, unlike Mourinho, Solskjaer, the pressure's off a little bit here. When Mourinho went for the Europa League, he basically put all his eggs in one basket in that regard. He bobbed off the Premier League. I think they finished maybe 6th that season, so it was really make or break to get into the Champions League. Whereas Solskjaer, with that victory over Leicester, it's kind of a little bit of a shot to nothing, especially tonight where they're already 5-0 up. But their path to the final looks pretty clear. Richie mentioned the Istanbul Copenhagen fixture there, and United play the winners of that, so that's a very winnable fixture. And then you're probably into the deeper realms. Is it Wolves, Richie, that could potentially lie ahead?
Wolves
are
potential semi-final, yeah.
So that's where it gets a bit tricky. But in terms of a road to the semi-final, much like they had when they won it a couple of years ago, it's been pretty plain sailing and a very good chance of silverware for Solskjaer. He's under pressure now because Arteta obviously got his bit last weekend. Lampard got to that final. Solskjaer's fallen at the semi-final hurdle a couple of times already, so he'll be keen to get that monkey off his back, I'm sure.
It's the pronunciation police on Twitter, I think, which has led to this new wave of how to correctly pronounce all these obscure European countries. I think that's what happens. So someone on television calls them by the name that we've all called them for 30, 40, 50 years, and then Twitter lights up and then you're done. I.e. the Camp Nou, which I will never subscribe to.
Come on. And remember when Upton Park was closing down, people started calling it the bowling ground for about 6 months before, and I was like, no one had ever called...
The thing about it is, I used to know a West Ham fan from that London who was very intent, even before this Upton Park closing thing came in, that it was called the Boleyn, and he would constantly refer to it as the Boleyn ground. So there is something silly to that.
That's just silly, Richie.
You may say that, Joseph. You may say. Come here. I've got team news, by the way, from Manchester United, and it is very much a team that have secured what they need to secure this season. Sergio Romero starts in goal. Back four of Timothy Fosu-Mensah, Eric Bailly, Harry Maguire captains the side, Brandon Williams, fresh off his new contract. Scott McTominay, Fred, and Juan Mata are in midfield. Jesse Lingard and Daniel James are either side of Odion Igalo.
Fred.
An 8 o'clock kickoff. No,
Yeah,
Fred.
I'm all for Fred is absolutely acceptable. Tim Vickery calls him Fred. That's the seal of approval as far as I'm concerned.
So Six Nations, we've had confirmation of kickoff times. It'll be a nice 8 o'clock evening kickoff in Paris.
Yeah, well, it's been confirmed that Ireland's Six Nations campaign is going to resume with the visit of Italy to the Aviva Stadium on October 24th. You mentioned kick-off times, Joe. We don't have one for that just yet. It's still to be confirmed. October 31st, we'll see the 3 final round matches being played all in the one day. Ireland's game away to France will kick off at 8 p.m. Irish time at the Stade de France. Before that, Italy face England in Rome. That one has a 4:45 kick-off. And a venue still to be decided for Wales meeting with Scotland. Twickenham still in the running for this one. It's going to have a 2:15 start, has that. The same weekends, we'll see Ireland's women play their rearranged fixtures with both Italy and France, but it's been decided that the 3 outstanding fixtures in the under-20 Six Nations cannot be completed, and there will be no winner of this year's under-20 championships.
On the FAI council situation and their vote on Friday, Jim says the phrase beggars can't be choosers comes to mind if the group who loaned you the money did so with conditions attached. you need to meet those conditions. And Michael Andrade, a similar theme. I wish I could go back to my bank and renegotiate my mortgage. What are some of these lads at? They don't have the chips to bargain with. I think that's the general sentiment coming in. And I mean, I understand to a point the reservations they may have about the split on the board, the 50-50 split between independent directors and members of the football family, as it's been termed. Yeah. But I really struggle to see how these independent directors coming in want anything but the best for Irish football.
And the other thing, Gary Owens explained it pretty well this afternoon. He said that the idea of independent directors, or directors, let's just say, from an outside sphere other than football, is a pretty nifty thing to have, because football has evolved. It's not just about the football family anymore, and it's not just about organising games up and down the country. There are bigger contracts to be signed, and there are bigger things to be dealing with, as the FAI have indeed found out over the course of the last 2-3 years. So it pays to have people with experience from outside the realm of football helping run the association, and that's what they're looking to do at the moment. People can still take issue with who is doing that, and that's absolutely fine, but to say the football, like, it should be a local sport for local people, essentially doing the Royston Vasey League of Gentlemen thing on it, like, that doesn't work anymore. It's the 21st century. Yeah, in the interest of balance, Mark McSharry wrote a piece in the Sunday Independent a couple of weeks ago, the TD, and he was absolutely adamant that there has been a lack of transparency over the appointments of the likes of Roy Barrett, and even mentioned Niall Quinn and Gary Owens, and there is a sense amongst members of the FAI Council that this visionary group that cropped up a while back is almost performing some kind of hostile takeover. That's their sense of things, and they are adamant there has been a lack of transparency. So that's Owens
the argument
today
going
as well.
on. Say again?
Owens batted that one away today as well. He said that the talk of a takeover by stealth is just completely misplaced, and like, we can only believe him.
Ireland and the cricket then.
Yeah, brilliant night last night. Kevin O'Brien again at the centre of an historic night for Ireland's cricketers. He hit the winning runs as Ireland beat the world champions England by 7 wickets in Southampton. It was their third and final one-day international. Ireland reached their target of 329 with just one ball of their innings remaining. Paul Sterling top scored for the visitors with 142. While the series went to England, last night's victory earns Ireland 10 valuable points in the World Cup Super League, which essentially gathers points in qualification for the 2023 World Cup finals. And O'Brien told this morning's OTB AM that last night's win surpasses one of the team's best ever achievements.
It's remarkable how the winning total was 329 last night, and it was 329 in Bangalore in 2011. How do these two occasions compare for you personally?
Listen, they're both fantastic occasions. You know, I think probably the magnitude of yesterday's win and the team we were playing, and, you know, the world champions and that type of thing, and that's been mentioned a lot by the media, and it's been mentioned in our squad sessions as well. You know, they are the best team in the world, you know, and they're the world champions. So to beat them is in their own backyard, and, you know, having come off, you know, 5 months rest and lockdown and all that type of stuff, you know. So they're obviously both two huge wins, and, you know, it's hard to put into place which is bigger. You know, but certainly at the moment, you know, last night's win is absolutely massive, and, you know, that's our last win, so it's probably bigger than Bangalore.
Kevin O'Brien there. You can catch the full OTB AM this morning on the new app, OTB Sports, in your app store. You'll find the lads there on video or podcast. We'll have the Irish captain, Andrew Balbirnie, on the way at 8:40, or Balbirnie, as I like to call him. There's a text in. The reason Richie's West Ham mate calls it the boiling ground is because he also frequents the same vinyl record store-loving, chin-stroking haunts that Richie does. No offence, says Brendan. Beautifully done, Brendan. Beautifully done. You are just childishly hipster, Richie. There's no two ways about it.
How can a child be hipster, Joe? You're contradicting yourself.
Immaturely.
Yeah, go on with your Balbirnie, will you?
You'll grow out of it. Louise
Not
Quinn.
a chance.
Louise Quinn. So she's in Florence these days, but she won an award.
She did indeed. She says she's thrilled to have been voted the Republic of Ireland Women's Player of the Year. The 29-year-old defender edged out her teammates Denise O'Sullivan and Katie McCabe to take the prize for what is a second time. As you mentioned there, Quinn signing for Fiorentina last week following her departure from Arsenal. She's going to be playing Champions League football next season.
Okay.
Westmeath GA chairman Billy Foley says they're going to struggle to field inter-county teams next season. He's told the Irish Independent that the Lake County are facing losses of around €200,000 due to restricted crowds at games. Foley added that yesterday's decision not to increase the capacity at matches from 200 people has been shattering news to the county boards. John Horan, the GA president, last night released a statement asking members not to be too despondent and downhearted at the decision, and saying that they respect the government's call not to increase crowd capacities despite lobbying from Horan and the GA.
Yeah, well, I think realistically the GA might be in a position to help out those counties. You know, they can borrow against future earnings. It's a very solvent organisation. It makes lots of money. We talked about the GPA last week. There are, 3 million given to the GPA. Perhaps the GPA might give up their annual sum to contribute. All of these things can be done. I certainly, Ronan, don't think it will come to teams not being able to field inter-county sides next season.
No, and I think it was a little bit unrealistic to be leaning on the prospect of crowds of any size. I think you touched on it last night, that to have sport back at all is a bit of a bonus. So we're in sort of bonus territory on a whole, really. And GA within sporting circles can't be accepted. It can't be the lone exception within sporting circles, nor can sport itself be an exception within social circles, because I think it was Kieran Cunningham was making the point on Sunday that if sport comes back in bigger numbers than is permitted around the country, then the likes of concert organisers are going to be like, well, if we have a concert in the Phoenix Park, there's no reason why we can't have several amount of people there and social distance. So it's going to open a can of worms, I think, in that regard. So caution, I think you just have to preach caution for the time being. And unfortunately, it is going to have a knock-on effect on counties and clubs, but that's it's just the way of the world across the board, isn't it?
Yeah, the economics are terrifying, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I'm not dismissing what the word from Westmeath is. It's scary. Even your next story, Richie, you're starting to see the beginnings of, unfortunately, where we're headed.
Yeah, Arsenal today announcing that they're making 55 redundancies because income has reduced significantly following the coronavirus pandemic. The North London club say the proposed changes are about creating what they call the right organisation for a post-COVID world at the club. The required 30-day consultation period is just beginning, while the nature of the roles at risk haven't been revealed. It's reported that scouting roles are among those that are being affected at Arsenal and could be among those being made redundant.
Yeah, at the same time, that's very hard to stand over, isn't it? As an organisation, as a club, talking about the right organisation for a post-COVID world. Their owner has 8 billion to his name. The players are earning obscene amounts of money. Mesut Ozil has been used as the poster boy for the excesses of wages, and he's sitting around doing nothing. He's earning 350,000, I think it is, per week. And they're all very valid points. I saw somebody make the point, if you were to take those 55 now redundant people and pay them 40,000 a year just to get them through the next year or two, it would amount to about 2 million. Which is, to a club like Arsenal, nothing.
Chicken feed.
It's nothing. Yeah, it's really dreadful decision. It's very hard for them to stand over or feel good about, because it's the excesses of capitalism at its absolute worst. It's just outrageous. And maybe the players should get together and do something about it.
The thing about it is,
Arsenal should do something about it.
Arsenal are the first and the biggest club to be open about it. We don't know if this is going to happen or is happening or has already happened at other big clubs, not only in England but around Europe as well. And to be honest with you, I don't think Arsenal are alone in this respect. There are other clubs that are going to be signing look, Arsenal today, for instance, are negotiating a deal essentially to sign Willian, to offer him a massive contract and a free transfer, while shoving 55 regular Joes out the door. And you're going to have other clubs. Like, the measure of it was when Arsenal tweeted that news, and there were replies to it from so-called fans asking why it wasn't the announcement of a signing. Like, that's where certain people's heads are still at in regards to football, and that needs to change. And hopefully one of the knock-on effects of all of this is that people's realities may be shifted probably in the right direction.
Yeah, no, it's very grim. I know Andy Minton was on last night. He was saying Manchester United have paid all staff and all casual staff as well, which they weren't obliged to do. And they'll be fine. Arsenal would have been fine as well. There's a text in from Jack, who I would suspect was an Ivan Yates listener. You News Talk Millennials, he said. Oh dear. I love Ivan Yates, by the way. And best of luck to Kieran Cuddy, I should say as well. Congrats to him. You News Talk Millennials all started to call Gibraltar when the Republic of Ireland got drawn with them in a couple of games, instead of the silent R, Gibraltar, which had always been used for years on news and sports programmes. I hadn't actually realised that. So Gibraltar was wrong. It's Gibraltar, Fair enough.
But is that because it's a British territory and they pronounce R's and stuff weirdly over there?
I don't think it's Gibraltar.
They do.
In it. Gibraltar in it. I don't think it's that.
If I could show you the pronunciation guides for some of the things we get through from IRM, they would make your hair turn white.
So you think this
bizarre.
is the English mispronouncing Gibraltar? It's Gibraltar.
Yeah, it's Gibraltar.
I'm not sure.
The water in Mallorca don't taste like what you know.
Alan in Dublin 7. Joe, the official name of West Ham Stadium was always the Boiling Green. I know. Upton Park is the address where it was. The nearest tube station was called Upton Park, and that's why it was used so much. But when we were about to leave our beloved home, fans understandably clung to as much nostalgia as they could, and that's why outsiders heard of the Boiling Ground for possibly the first time. Now, I know I did hear all that at the time, but really, like in the real world, it was Upton Park. You know, when you were watching the match and it was like, where is the game? It's at Upton Park. The stadium was called Upton Park. Okay,
the real world is not the media elite in which you fraternise, Joseph. Come on now, as well you know.
So West Ham fans would have said the Boiling Ground at all times. That's what you're telling me.
Not at all times. No, it would have vacillated between the two.
No,
it would have definitely. It would have swung between the two.
I'm not sure ever. For about a month when it was going. Oh, our beloved Boiling Ground it was. Yeah, okay.
You're even pronouncing Boleyn wrong. Do you call her Anne Boylan as if she lives in Dunshaughlin or something?
Anne Boylan from Gibraltar. All right, this is descending into farce. The good news is that is the news round done for the season. Richie, thank you very much, and Ronan Mullen, thank you.
Cheers, ho.
We have ourselves the first major of the golfing season. We have a former champion, Padraig Harrington, to talk to us about the USPGA at Harding Park. So golf on the way in a moment.
Golf sensation Tiger Woods says his car crash outside his Florida mansion is a private matter, and he intends to keep it that way.
Every one of you has good reason